Hey there, it's Jenny, and I wanted to talk to you today about stamping. We're going to talk about stamping in your planner. However, all of these tips and techniques will also work for you if you're stamping in other places. Paper crafting projects, gift tags, things like that. Now, I'm going to share with you the details of these Archer and Olive stamps, but I'm also going to talk to you a little bit about why we choose stamping. I love stamping because it helps you create unique projects. They're different than anyone else's simply by the fact that the stamps that you select and then all of the different ink choices, the coloring choices, and things like that make them completely unique to you. Not only that, but then they're also so creative. So you get to choose all of those same things in your projects. And stamps are really super versatile. You can use them in so many different ways. So maybe this particular shape or this clock, either one, were created with a planner in mind. However, they could be used for memory keeping. They could be used for all kinds of different things. So that's just some of the reasons why I love stamping. Now, I'm going to go ahead and work with you today as if you're brand new to stamping. You've never stamped before, and I'm just going to give you a rough overview. We're not going to get into the real nitty-gritty of stamping today. I'm going to give you a couple of examples each step of the way, and know that there are more ways to do it than just this. Now, there are some different types of stamps. There are rubber stamps. They are red rubber. You've seen them often mounted on wood blocks. And red rubber stamps are wonderful. They help you create a beautiful stamped image. You don't see them as much anymore regularly produced. They're harder to store, and people have grown in favor of the clear stamps since you can see through them when you're stamping. So for example, you can see all of these stamps, and then you can see them right on the paper directly where you're going to stamp, and that is a huge benefit. Now, you're also going to find photopolymer stamps. They are also clear stamps like these right here. They are mostly created here in the United States of America. They are a beautiful option. They are so easy to use. The image that you get stamped is absolutely beautiful, and they often are a little bit more expensive than acrylic stamps. Now, these are acrylic stamps from Archer and Olive, both of these sets, and they are absolutely wonderful. Acrylic stamps have the benefit of being a little less expensive, so you can get bigger stamps like this for a more affordable price. And they are still also clear, as you can see. We already showed you that right here. Great. Now, let's talk about the different types of ink that you might use. Today, in all of my examples, I'm going to use this VersaFine, okay? VersaFine is a pigment ink that is specially formulated for small details, and I really like that for stamping in planners because, as you can tell, lots of the stamps have incredible detail or are very, very small, and it is so much easier to use. It has a slightly higher price tag than some you'll find. However, it is definitely worth it, especially if you are a beginner. Now, VersaFine also creates a very similar formulation in colors called VersaFine Clair. I use these often and really enjoy them. And another pigment ink is Brilliance. It's beautiful. This is a gold ink pad. Pigment inks sit on top of the paper. It takes them a little bit longer to dry, although that's not true of the VersaFine. It dries very quickly. Now, the ink pads, the pigment ink is often also used for heat embossing if you've ever seen that before. But pigment ink is absolutely beautiful, has beautiful colors, and it sits on top of the paper, so you want to give it a minute to dry before you move on. Now, another type of ink that you'll commonly see is a pigment ink, or I'm sorry, a dye ink. These are dye inks, and they dye the paper. They soak into the paper and they dye it. Luckily for all of us, Archer and Olive paper is really heavy duty, so you don't have to worry about using dye ink. It won't bleed through to the other side. I'm going to, as I already told you, use the VersaFine today. It is my very favorite ink. It is very easy to use, and it is formulated to capture details, as I already told you. So you will not have any problems there. Now, in terms of other things that you need to stamp, you will for sure need a clear block. I've just pulled out 2 examples because they fit most of the stamps that we're going to work with today. However, a clear block, I see people saying, oh, you can use the bottom of a glass, you can use, you know, a wide myriad of things, and that's definitely true. However, honestly, a clear block is going to be the easiest for you to use and help you get the best impression possible. You'll also want to choose a block that is close in size to your stamp. So you don't want to use this bigger one with this itty bitty star. Let's see if we can get I can show you that. It's just harder to get a clean, even impression when they're not better matched. I don't know if you can see that, but it's just so tiny on the block. And so you'd be much, much better off using a smaller block for this. Now, if you only have one block, do your best, but I highly recommend matching your stamp to the same size block that you're using. As close as you can, anyway. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and we are going to put a stamp. I'm going to use the number 3 from this stamp set on the block. So you simply place the flat side down. The side that has the grooves is pointing up, and the flat side goes directly to, sticks to the clear block. You don't need anything else. They stick to one another. And then as you can see here, you can see through the block and you can see exactly where you're stamping. Now, obviously we need to add the ink here. Now, one good thing, especially with acrylic stamps, however, you'll want to do this with photopolymer as well, especially if it's the first time, you'll want to prime your stamps. Now, I do a priming that is incredibly simple and works great for me. I simply rub the stamps on the back of my hand. The natural oils in your skin will help prime the stamp. That's what I do every single time. You can also use an eraser, so you can simply lightly rub it over the top. Now, as mentioned before, there are other methods. I'm not covering every single method, just like I didn't cover every single type of ink pad or every single type of acrylic block. We're just giving you the basics here today. Now you go ahead and you press your ink pad or your stamp into the ink pad, or you can turn it over and you can do it like this. It doesn't make a difference. You don't want to put too much ink, otherwise you'll get way too much and you'll get smushing and all kinds of stuff. You then want to press your stamp down with firm and even pressure all over this stamp. You don't want to rock it back and forth. You don't want to jiggle it, just even firm pressure. You don't want to press too hard either because it can make it smoosh. Like I'm going to try to smoosh this as hard as I humanly can. See, it's just not as nice. Hopefully you can see that, you can see the differences. This is a nice normal impression, and this is the impression where I smushed it as hard as I could. It's just not great. You just want to give it even, firm pressure. You also want to stamp on a nice, even, firm surface, so a desk, a countertop, something like that. Don't do it on your lap on the couch. Now, as you get better at stamping, you are able to stamp in a wider variety of places. However, an even firm surface like a desk is the best choice. And the same goes for your supplies. You want to use the supplies that will set you up for success. So you can see there, it's simple. It is very, very simple. However, what I recommend is using a piece of scratch paper first. So you can see here, I tried drawing some lines. It just didn't work well for me. So I'm going to set that aside. So practice on a piece of scratch paper, the back of a piece of printer paper. Just stamp over and over again. Try out different types of inks. Try out different stamps. This will help you. The phrase practice makes better definitely applies to stamping. You don't wake up one day and you're just a beautiful stamper without practicing. Now that we've done this, let's talk about cleaning our stamps. Now, you don't need to clean your stamps. What? I know, it's crazy. The inks aren't going to damage your stamps. Now, a lot of people, it drives them crazy when they look like this and they're not clear and beautiful. So let's talk about how to clean them. You can stamp the excess ink off on a piece of scratch paper. This will help get rid of the excess ink so that if, say, I want to go to my pink ink pad and I want to ink up this number 3 stamp, I can without having any excess ink on it. So for example, I'm using the pink because it's the lightest color that I have so that we can see if there's any black. So I can stamp right here, and I've stamped off the excess black. You can see right here there was still some excess black on there. But so we can stamp off the extra on a piece of paper. I would only do that if I was in a pinch, if I didn't have other options. Now, one way that you can clean your stamps, and I did this for many, many years, is by using baby wipes. You want to just make sure to use alcohol-free baby wipes, and you'll want to try different types if you're interested in using baby wipes. I've given up baby wipes for now. The lint was driving me crazy, and it's just hard to find one that has the right moisture saturation, and not too much lint. I'm currently using this system, which is a system I used about 15 years ago as well, using a water-based stamp cleaner. This one is from Ranger, and a scrubber. They sell chamois, they sell all kinds of things to clean your stamps. A couple of squirts, maybe even one does it depending on the size of your stamp. I just dry it off over here on the side, and voila, my stamp is completely clean. Now, another wonderful way and low-tech way to clean your stamps is to use a couple of small bowls of water. In this one, you put a drop of dishwashing soap, and then you put your stamp in there and you simply rub it with your fingers. And remember, there's 1 dish of soap in there. You're just using room temperature water. Then you dip it in this one to clean off all of the soap. Then I use a microfiber towel, and I simply set my stamps on here to air dry. Now, this will also be the way that you can, if your stamps lose their sticky, you're handling them a lot, you're putting them on and off of your clear blocks, and then they are not sticking anymore. Try this technique. 2 small bowls of water, one that has 1 drop of dishwashing soap in it, and another with no soap. Clean it, rinse it, let it air dry on your towel. Room temperature water, not hot, not cold, just somewhere in between. That is a great way to get your stamps to stick again and to fully clean them as well. I'm just going to dry this one off a little bit and then move it on out of the way and let it continue to air dry. Now, let's talk about another idea before we move on over. Actually, you know what? Let's talk about that idea here in a minute. Okay, so I set up a week or some boxes where we might stamp some things, okay? So let's try stamping a few things on our boxes. So let's start, for example, we'll go with, I'm gonna add Tuesday to the top of my column. Now, another trick that you can do is you can lay the bumpy side down, touching the paper, and the smooth side up, and simply pick up onto your block like that. Now, if you have one long, the stamp that this would work perfectly for example, is this one right here, one long stamp. Then that you can ensure that it will remain straight and not get misaligned or squiggly or anything like that. All right, so the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and get my ink pad out. I'm gonna open it up. I'm going to prime the stamp on the back of my hand. Remember, you can use a variety of ways to do this, including the eraser that we talked about. Oops, now that's common, right? I'm gonna wipe this off because, and I'll use a baby wipe since I have them right here. If if you're not careful, this can transfer to the paper, that long black line of ink. And we don't want that because then you'll have to start all over or cover it or something like that. All right, so we've got the Tuesday. I'm gonna go ahead and stamp that right down here. Even, firm pressure, not too hard, not too soft, all over the stamp design, no rocking, and pull it up. Now it says Tuesday. I'm just gonna wipe my stamp off with the baby wipe since it's right here. And then I'm going to simply return the Tuesday to my sheet. You do leave the backing on, that way you don't lose the stamps. And press it right on there. Now we'll go ahead and we'll say that, all right, let's see, does this one fit here? No, it doesn't. Sadly, it does not fit. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this clock. Now you'll want to be careful to pull these off as well so that you don't tear them. Prime my stamp, ink it up. I'm just going to make sure that I get one at the top so that it looks like a clock hand. Even, firm pressure throughout the design. Voila. I'll wipe it off because I have the baby wipe. And then I will, let's just say I'm gonna draw in my lines, and super cute, right? And then I'll write okay. Then the last one we'll do for this particular layout. I'll remove this stamp, put it back in its packaging, and then we'll get this little to-do as well. So it can be such a great way because say I really want to do a black and white layout today, I'm really feeling very monochromatic, then we can do that by simply selecting an ink color that goes perfectly with it. Otherwise, you could use a different color palette, you could use whatever you want. And once you purchase the stamps, they are yours forever. So you don't have to worry about repurchasing them or them running out. The only thing you have to worry about is you, losing the stamp, which I actually have done. That's also one reason why we use the bowls for cleaning. Now this stamp does have a little defect in it, and you can see it on my stamping right here. That is a thing. However, it's not very common. Most of the time, the quality is amazing from photopolymer or acrylic stamps. So you don't really have that, but it does happen occasionally. So you'll just want to check your stamps to make sure that you don't have a problem. But in this case, so with that little white mark, it doesn't bother me and I would totally leave it. But if it bothers you, you can simply cover it up with a little pen and it's no longer there. So that's how we go ahead and we stamp directly in our planner. Now let's think about, okay, so you're nervous, you're new to stamping, you're just not sure, you don't want to mess up your awesome Archer and Olive planner. I get it. I have felt the same way in the past. So what you can do is you can take your stamp and you can stamp it on a piece of paper. So let's do that. Let's take our notepad. Let's create, gotta go ahead, remember, and prime my stamp. I'm gonna ink it up, no ink on there. I'm going to stamp onto another piece of paper. Even, firm pressure, it looks great. We're gonna wipe that off just so I don't get ink everywhere. I don't have to clean my ink or my stamps. It doesn't harm them to leave the ink on there. However, I'm very messy and that often means that I end up with ink everywhere. Now, simply what we're gonna do is we're just going to take our scissors, cut this out, now this is a very easy shape, obviously. Lots of great straight lines, but that was designed to be quick and to show you how to do this technique without taking up too much time. Now, okay, so we have the shape. It's completely cut out. You can see that right here. I'm simply going to add the tiniest bit of adhesive to the back. sorry, that needed to be pushed up a little bit. And then I'm just going to add it to my planner page right here. Now, obviously, I could have used a different color to maybe show you a little bit better. So let's try that again with the craft color. Okay, so this time the priming is twofold because my stamp is still wet a little tiny bit from the baby wipe. So I'm simply going to prime it, get some ink on there. We're going to stamp, even firm pressure on the entire design, and then we will cut it out. Just so then you can see how that works on your paper. Now, I will say that on this example, it looks great because the white on the white with it wouldn't necessarily stand out, and you wouldn't for sure know that it wasn't stamped directly on the page. But I know that a lot of beginning stampers are nervous, and so this is a great way to simply stamp and not be nervous by putting it on another sheet of paper. And then you can stamp on pink or yellow or purple or whatever final color that you really enjoy. If you have questions regarding stamping that I didn't answer for you today in this video, please let me know in the comments below. I'd be happy to help. I have just given you a little bit of background on how to stamp in your planners and a basic overview. Obviously, there are lots more information out there regarding stamping, but this will get you started on your journey to stamping in your journals and notebooks and planners. Thanks so much, and make it a great day.